by introducing the faceless system. We are probably the one and only country anywhere in the world with such a technology-driven system wherein individual subjectivities do not influence the taxpayer's mind, but he is treated with a sense of objectivity and therefore faceless. Although I would recall that in 2020 when it was brought in, and subsequently when in 21 we brought in the appeal also faceless, we tread with caution. All of us were very cautious about it. We were very hesitatingly moving forward. While we saw the merit of it, there was also this question of, will we be able to do it well? Can we take it forward in a complete faceless sort of way? And so on. Legitimate concerns were there in the minds of most of us. But to the credit of each one of you, today faceless in direct taxation, faceless appeal in direct taxation is being quoted even by the indirect taxation people and saying, can we do this also for us in the GST and many others. So you've not only removed the initial apprehensions which were in the minds of people, today it stands out to clearly showcase how, because of the faceless, we've earned the confidence of our taxpayers. You're able to showcase that much of efficiency even in a faceless system, as much as you would have done when you were meeting them one-on-one. Assessees do feel comfortable, and also simultaneously along with this, in a year's gap I would say, we came up with the second tax regime, the new regime as we would call, the alternative regime as we've called, even as the first one continues still today. And that showcased how a transparent, simple, easy to comply system could be brought. Otherwise, today, within 2 years of bringing it in, we wouldn't have had 72% of all the taxpayers moving to the new system. So last year, there was a lot of hesitation, and people wondered, is it attractive enough? Is it good enough? Is it simple enough? Are people actually moving? Today, I'm speaking in front of the media as much as I'm speaking in front of you. Media constantly kept asking us, do you think the second system is being welcomed? Are people willing to move to it? Is it simple enough? Today, the numbers speak for themselves. 72% moving from the old system to this very clearly shows that this has been now accepted as a very well thought through system, wherein the rates are simple, there are no exemptions, no compliance headaches, and therefore has become very attractive. For those who look at income tax from outside, who think, why can't the old system also, old regime also, get the same benefits as the new one? I would like to upfront say that in the process of moving towards a simpler and a easy to comply system, which will be bereft of all the complications of exemptions and so on, we came with this alternative system and underlined the fact that it shall only be an option, it's a choice. We are not compelling people to move from the old to the new. When they think it is going to benefit them to move, they would automatically do. So we gave them the option to move, and if they did find it not so convenient, they would even have the option to go back. With all these kind of flexibilities, India's direct taxation is very clearly understanding the requirement of the people and giving them a flexible way of transitioning towards a simpler, easier, and easy to comply system. So the transition is more on the principle of nudge rather than this is it, you take it, or else I'm sorry, you have to comply and there's no alternative. That's not the approach our government has taken. Prime Minister Modi has been very clear from the beginning that we need to provide simpler system. We need to make it easy to comply. We also have to continuously show reduction in the rate. So that once that kind of a reduction in the rate and simpler system comes in place, the tax net would widen because people will understand that it is easier to comply, beneficial to comply, and simpler to comply, and therefore they would move. That theory is now proving to become correct because you see the way people are moving out of the old regime to the new. So, having said all this, before I get into the details which are between you and us, it is more to start with. On the 155th year of income tax, I'd like to thank India's honest taxpayers. The taxpayers are the ones who are making this country stand up and say it can face newer challenges, it can meet the aspirations of the people, and also deliver for those citizens who are unfortunate, who probably do not have basic necessities in life. So the welfare aspect of it, the development aspect of it, the aspirational aspect of it are all being met purely because India's honest taxpayers are the ones who are keeping this machine moving. And therefore, once again, at the cost of repetition, but with heartfelt thanks, I would appreciate and absolutely express my gratitude to every one of our taxpayers on this 165th anniversary of income tax. So I also equally appreciate the fact, because of the way in which we have come up with this second new scheme, and also in the way in which, because of faceless, you earn the trust of the taxpayer. The number of new net addition this year of taxpayers has gone up. That number also was mentioned earlier, and I'm indeed very grateful that 58.57 lakh ITRs were received from first-time tax filers, which actually is a great point. And I can see the tax net widening, and to these new first-time tax filers, I give a great word of appreciation, because we need such examples which will showcase to the world that India is a country which is getting more and more formalized. People are coming on board and paying up the taxes. This budget 24-25, I made very clear statements that there shall be 4 major objectives that we like to reach: simplify taxes, improve taxpayer services, provide tax certainty, and reduce litigation. On all these 4 grounds, I can see a lot of work happening. I appreciate the board for being open-minded about how these steps can be taken forward. And with this announcement that which we've come up with, that within 6 months, we will have the tax code or the Income Tax Act, at least some parts of it very clearly, written in simple, easy to understand language. There is a committee within the CBDT which is working on it. And I'm happy to say the lines and the 3 goals which the Honorable Prime Minister had mentioned: seamless, painless, and faceless, will be kept in mind even as we are working on it. Improving taxpayers' experience is something which I would want each one of you all to pay some more attention, because only after the taxpayers have realized that there is ease and flexibility and simplicity which is being offered, like in the new tax regime, people are willing to come on board and comply. There should also be that approach in the rare occasion when you'll have a one-on-one interaction with our SSCs. So I think it is important for the language that is used in our tax notices. This is a point on which I would certainly want the Revenue Secretary, the Chairman of the CBDT, and each one of you all to pay some attention. The language that you use in notices, tax notices, or letters, pardon me for saying in this language, but I want to express it, Because I'm sure you know, heart of hearts, that is the reason why there are a lot of questions, and then you give clarifications, and then you issue frequently asked questions for which you give answers. You can avoid all that if the language that you use in tax notices and letters are not so convoluted and are not too technical. After all, the taxpayer can belong to any domain. He can be a non-governmental organization working to help better sanitation in the village. He can be a college lecturer teaching English or history or Telugu or Hindi. He need not understand the technical language with which you're an expert in the domain. So if your notice also has to showcase your language, it can frighten the assessee. So I would think it is important that your letters become simpler in its language, devoid of technical words, so that an average taxpayer understands what you are really asking him to do. You may just be asking him for a clarification. But when it comes with that whether, notwithstanding, if and but and commas, and by the law, whatever section so and so, he would rather seek his auditor and lawyer than answer you directly. So I would say, can we explore issuing simple, easy to understand notices so that our communication is accessible? And also, each time such notices go, can you also please explain the reasons behind any action taken, and also the reason behind why the notice has to go in the first place? So it can immediately give a comfort to the person who receives it, saying, all right, he wants this notice to be taken for only an explanation that I have to give, I'll give it. Instead, if there is a technical language couching a lot of points, it is left to this man who's already worried as to why he got this letter to start imagining, saying probably it means a lot more than what is written there. So I would honestly say we should look at simpler ways of talking and communicating with our assessees. Also, grievance redressal is a major issue. In fact, I was mentally, as I was seated there, thinking in terms of just making my speech simpler by saying 2 things on the side of the assessee and 2 things on your side. I'm elaborating, so I'm not making it as simple as that, but eventually, the 2 things that your side you need to come up with. If you've had a universal recognition for having brought in the faceless, the only country to have brought in a faceless, can we on this 165th day commit ourselves to say faceless, fair, and friendly? Can we make it that? Faceless, you are already, and you've got global recognition for it. No other country has come up with a complete faceless way of dealing with their taxation. You are the leaders in it. But can you also give a message that beyond being faceless, we are fair and we are friendly? I would honestly want 166th anniversary next year to say, I would like to hear the Revenue Secretary and the chairman of the CBDT to say, last year we recognized that globally we were the only country to have given a faceless regime. Now the global buzz is that we are the most friendly and we are also the most fair. Please aspire to reach that milestone. I would think in this 165 years, you still have more of the days with the British and less with free India. Am I right? 77 years with free India, and still you have those years with the British. You don't need to wait for it to cross the threshold. You should now be able to say that we look at Indian citizens with great trust. We will definitely, legitimately collect what is due, but we'll do it with fairness and friendliness. I hope this little request is not mistaken as though, there can always be there can always be people who will interpret it as saying, oh, did the finance minister imply? And I'm sure it'll already pound the social media, saying, did she imply that the income tax is unfair? Not at all. No, not at all. But if we want to create that overwhelming impression, we need to push forward in that also as much as we have done on the faceless. Easy to be spoken to, people to approach you, simpler ways in which you communicate are all the ways in which you can show that you're transparent and fair. And friendliness is not at the compromise of what you have to do as a sovereign duty. You can still do it. And many income tax officers have been seen and looked up. In fact, from the time I've heard the songs being sung by your own people, by our own IRS, what fine qualities you exhibit. Writing books, doing wonderful cultural work, being good sports persons, trainers of sports persons. These are not finer qualities which are coming out. They are. Similarly, even in dispensing your duty, a little extra, yes, I'm here to help you, will you tell me what it is, would help. So place the trust on the SSC, please. The other one pillar in favor of the SSC that I would like to place before you is, can the experience of filing returns on the first day when the session opens, 1st April, I think you'll start the moment he knows that this financial year starts, he or she plans his assessment filing. Let the experience of filing the assessment on the first day be as good as on the last day, 31st July of that year. Why should the experience be more tense when it gets to the last day, final day, deadline day? And it's good that you're reminding them periodically, please, 1 more week to go for you to file. But it need not be in such a way that 1 more week to go before you. Yeah? So if there is a way in which that communication can also be inviting them to file rather than frightening them to say, file or else. So there are simpler ways in becoming a little more amiable. You're doing a splendid work. You're doing your duty. No doubt. No one can question that. And that is why today you find compliance increasing. But an element of simpler and finer words in communication will remove that impression which is going out. And I can, standing here, say that impression is not fair at all. There can be 1 or 2, people who are being difficult. But the entire service being painted in those colors is not right at all. And I would stand to defend any time saying what the service has done to this country. So despite all the sometimes not fair-mouthed language which flows particularly in the social media, I think the service has done well for itself for having dealt with some of the adverse remarks. But I would strongly stand by you on it. We should not get carried away and respond to any of this. Your service is important for the country. You're doing what is mandated for you, but as long as you do it with fairness and openness and with trust in the assessee themselves, I think we'll be able to cross the bridge to convey the fact that you're performing your duty, and you will definitely try as much as possible to be fair and transparent. But that is why the communication that you use will have to showcase that you are, for a particular reason, approaching a particular assessee with the reason stated. Your side of the story should be fairly clear and crystal clear. So I would think that is one of the things that I would put forth before you on this 165th year. Litigation management is something about which we've said that even in the budget that we've come up with, monetary thresholds for departmental appeal has been increased so that your time doesn't go in pursuing smaller cases, but we'll be able to take the bigger ones and focus on getting success in them. We've also come up with a Vivad Se Vishwas this time too, and I think that will also give some relief to the assessees. And one thing which was much discussed with the board, I'd like to repeat it here, deploying more officers to dispose the backlog of first appeal is something which we have mentioned in the budget. I would strongly nudge that we move fast on that so that we are able to give relief to the assessees. I've also mentioned about earlier, but I will again drive the point home, judicious use of power. You're vested with rightly adequate power to perform your duties. Rightly, you're vested with that kind of a power. But I want you to be conscious that you use it judiciously. And on that, it must not come at the cost of fairness and integrity. Please kindly listen to the few words that I say in this context. It is for us. There is no difference between a minister and the chairman of the board, or the revenue secretary, or an officer, or a principal commissioner, or an additional commissioner. All of us face the flag if we are not transparent in the ways in which we deal with our assessees. So it must not come, your use of power must not come at the cost of fairness and integrity. The department must exercise its powers judiciously, ensuring that taxpayers and businesses are not subjected to unnecessary harassment. Tax authority, the authority that is vested in our tax officers, is meant to ensure compliance and not to create fear. I'm sure there are members in your own households, if they received a notice, and if the notice was simple and straightforward, they wouldn't even call you on the phone to say, I received one. But I know of some people who immediately call up their friends who are in the service to say, hey, I've got this notice, what is this supposed to mean? Immediately, the sense of fear that comes into people should no longer be there, because you are now conscious that you're doing a job, particularly through the faceless, which is full of trust on the assessee. So kindly ensure that the notices or letters or the inquiries that you send through email are so worded that they are simple and straightforward. Use enforcement measures as a last resort. It's a very important line. Kindly keep that in mind. Only as a last resort. Enforcement measures. Action taken is proportionate to the issue at hand. That's a guiding principle I would want you to keep in mind. That you don't take action which is disproportionate. And only then fears compounds. People would think, I've only done this one little mistake which I'm willing to correct, but look at the ham-handed way in which I've been dealt with. Avoid that. Also, always follow due process. Even if you're trying to help the situation, don't violate process. And then the goal is to encourage voluntary compliance. So I take this opportunity to give you these probably well-known guiding principles, but I'm using this occasion to remind you, because we are at a stage where sometimes even a good performance is being misunderstood. There are times when people have accused us, saying, you're generating so much resources, but you're not being fair to us. You will almost on an everyday basis hear this comment coming, which is not any fault of yours. You're doing your duty. You're making sure there are no evasion. You're making sure you'll plug the loopholes. But that's seen with a bit of cynicism, which is not fair. and I don't support that. I'm with you because you're performing. I'm with you, you are doing your sovereign duty more diligently. And therefore, we should be extremely careful that these are not misread and you're not being judged wrongly. The one other, I said two on the side of the assessee, two things on the side of assessee. The first one I formulated saying faceless, fair, and friendly. The second thing, refunds. I think you're performing much better than before, but I would still think there's a lot more to do. Can refunds go sooner rather than later? Can refunds be, because I can see that this time, in the current assessment year, 1.21 crore returns have already been processed within 24 hours. Am I right? Within 24 hours, 1.21 crore assessments, returns have been assessed already. So if I go by that measure, and if you're able to do it within 24 hours, can then the refunds happen faster? Because this year, you have performed much better than every other year, but I can also see there is room for improvement. We are also clearing up a lot of assessment from 21, some from 22, but can it be speedier than what it is now? So I won't take more of your time. It's been a very satisfying and immensely pleasurable evening. The multi-talented people have come out, showcasing what they can do. Capacity building is one point which I would like to underline as my parting remark. We need to build capacity in our officers to be more efficient in the way in which they use the technology, also to understand the global negotiations on various points. Particularly on the two-pillar solution, I think we'll have a lot to contribute to in the negotiation, as much as be ready for when the two-pillar solutions are concluded for us to be carefully executing it in India. So I strongly encourage the CBDT to see the best practices which happen globally, the emerging areas in which we need to learn a lot more, and on international taxation assessment, we need to also get a grip of how things are moving all over the world. So I think these next 5 years are going to be very critical in the growth of India. The aspiration is by 2047 we become a very developed country, for which our Indian citizens, our people, will have to be a lot more empowered. They should have a lot more opportunities for creating better economic environment for themselves and for their families. In that, the contribution of the Indian Revenue Service is going to be immense, and the income tax officials, therefore, will have to be a lot more energetic, future-looking, and be a lot more using technology. So with these words, I thank you and wish you for the immense contribution that you've made in the 165 years of your service to this nation. Thank you very much. Jai Hind.
आपके इन प्रेरणादायक शब्दों के लिए कोटि कोटि धन्यवाद महोदया। हम आपको आश्वासन दिलाते हैं कि आपके मार्गदर्शन और करदाताओं के सहयोग से हम इस विभाग को सफलता और सेवानिष्ठा की नई ऊंचाइयों पर ले जाएंगे।
As we come to an end of this wonderful evening, I now request Member Taxpayer Services and Revenue, Shri HPS Gill sir, to kindly deliver the vote of thanks.
Honorable Union Minister of Finance and Corporate Affairs, Shrimati Nirmala Sitharaman ji, respected Union Minister of State for Finance, Shri Pankaj Chaudhary ji, Revenue Secretary Shri Sanjay Malhotra, officers and officials of the Income Tax Department, distinguished guests, stakeholders, taxpayers, friends from the media, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Central Board of Direct Taxes and Income Tax Department, it is my privilege to extend my sincere gratitude to everyone who have joined us today in person and online to celebrate the 165th year of income tax. First, my heartfelt gratitude to the Chief Guest, Union Minister of Finance and Corporate Affairs, Shrimati Nirmala Sitharaman ji, for agreeing to be our Chief Guest. Dear ma'am, it means the world to us that